500 and NASDAQ closing at all-time highs. The Dow up, gold up, real estate.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another TrendSpider Technical Analysis Series video. Today, we're going to be taking a close look at the Ichimoku indicator. Now, at first glance, this indicator might appear to be very complex. So if you've neglected to try using it in your trading up to this point, that's perfectly understandable. Today, however, we'll break down what each piece of the indicator means, how to think about making trades based off of it, and finally, the different ways that you can use it on the TrendSpider platform. Let's jump in. Now, the first thing that you'll notice when you add the indicator to your chart are the 5 uniquely colored lines. Let's go over what they all represent. First, we have the orange line here. This is the Tenkan Sen. The Tenkan Sen represents the midpoint of the highest and lowest prices over a period of 9 candles. This means it takes the highest price over the last 9 candles and the lowest price over the last 9 candles, adds them together, and divides by 2. Next, we have the purple line here. This is the Kinjin Sen. The Kinjin Sen represents the midpoint of the highest and lowest prices over a period of 26 candles. So it's going to move a little bit differently than the Tenkan Sen. Next, we have the Chikou Span. This is the blue line right here. The Chikou Span represents the current candle's closing price, but it's plotted 26 periods back on the chart. And then finally, we have the Kumo Cloud. The Kumo Cloud is comprised of the Senkou A and the Senkou B lines. The Senkou A represents the midpoint between the Tenkan Sen value and the Kinjin Sen value, and it's plotted 26 periods into the future. The Senkou B here represents the midpoint of the last 52 price bars. So it takes the high of the last 52 candles and the low of the last 52 candles, adds them, divides by 2, and plots that value 26 periods into the future. Now that we know what each line represents and how it's calculated, let's go over what to look for on the indicator when considering either a long or a short biased trade. If you have a short bias, there are a handful of different signals that we might want to see occurring on the Ichimoku indicator that suggest weakness in the stock. First, we might want to see that the Tenkan Sen line is either crossing down on the Kinjin Sen line or is below it. In this particular case, it's just below it. We might also want to see that price is trading below the Kumo Cloud. We can see that is definitely the case here. And that the cloud is negative, that the Senkou A is below the Senkou B. Finally, we might want to be looking for the Chikou Span, this blue line, being below the cloud, and it is on this particular symbol. Next, let's talk about a long bias. If we have a long bias, we're looking for the opposite of when we have a short bias. In this particular case, we want to see that the Tenkan Sen is either crossing up on the Kinjin Sen or is just above it. In this case, it's above it. We want to see that price is trading above the cloud, that the cloud is positive, the Senkou A is above the Senkou B, and that the Chikou Span is above the cloud. Now that we understand the basics of bullish and bearish scenarios, let's talk through some actionable setups. First, let's go through a bearish setup. One of the early indications of a bearish setup is when the Tenkan Sen line crosses down on the Kinjin Sen line. We can see that occurring right now here on AVGO. To give this setup a bit more strength, we want to see that price is closing below both the Tenkan Sen and the Kinjin Sen lines. We can see that as well here. So this name represents a good, potentially bearish setup. Now let's look at a potentially bullish setup. In a bullish setup, we might want to be looking for a cross up on the Kumo Cloud, meaning the Senkou A is crossing up on the Senkou B. To give this particular setup a bit more strength, we might also want to look for price closing above the cloud. We can see that occurring here. Now that we have 2 different setups, let's talk about how we can utilize these setups on the platform. I'm going to use the bullish setup going forward. Now, remember, in the bullish setup, we're looking for the Senkou A crossing up on the Senkou B and price above the cloud. Now, we can define these conditions and use them in a number of different ways on the platform. For example, we know that XEL is meeting this criteria right now, right? We can actually utilize the strategy tester to see when this name meets this criteria, how does it tend to perform? That way we can make a much more educated trading decision. So let's do that. We're going to go to Strategy Tester. I'm going to choose Bullish Itchy Strat. This is something that I have pre-written here. On the entry side, we can see Senku A crossing up on Senku B, price close greater than Senku A, price close greater than Senku B. Now, every strategy test requires both an entry and an exit criteria. One common exit setup or one common exit criteria that's used on a bullish entry is price closing below the Senku B. So that's what I've got here for my exit. I'm going to click run, and we're going to run this test and see how it performs. We've got the results back. We can see we've taken 2 positions over the last year, and the performance on those 2 positions was not very good. It was actually a negative 9.67% loss. Compare that to the asset performance, a gain of 17.33%, and we could see clearly that although this is a bullish setup, generally speaking, this name does not perform well when this criteria is met. So then that leads us to the idea of, are there other names that are meeting this criteria right now? And we can utilize the scanner to check and see. So let's do that. We're going to say Market Scanner. Come over here, type in Itchy. Again, I've got this preset. And again, those entry criteria that we were utilizing in the strategy tester are now scan criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and click Scan. And I'm going to get back a list of symbols that are all meeting this criteria right now. So even though XEL wasn't a good opportunity for us, we've got a new list of symbols, and we could backtest all of these symbols to see how they perform. The last piece here is, what if you have a particular name that you know performs well when this particular criteria is being met, but this criteria is not being met on that name right now? We can utilize the multi-factor alert and create an alert on that name so that we are alerted when that criteria is being met. First, we need to pick a name. I'm going to go with Netflix here. Then we just come up to Create Alert, say Multi-Factor Alert, go to Script Actions, Load from Template, type in Itchy, select the bullish setup. Again, you can see the criteria is the same. Choose the script, choose our expiry, say Create Alert, and now we'll be alerted the next time Netflix meets our entry criteria. So there you have it, folks. Some simple and easy ways to utilize the Ichimoku indicator on the platform. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, happy trading, and we'll catch you next time.